All right, y'all. Welcome back to the Fearless Podcast. We are at episode 21.
21.
And so today we have none other than Dr. Shawn Baker on the podcast. We're going to be talking about carnivore, the carnivore diet, joint and connective tissues, all these kind of cool things. But wanted to welcome Dr. Baker to the program. How are you doing today, Dr. Baker?
Hey, I'm good. We talked about just before. I just got done stuffing a big old strip loin roast that I cooked up. Man, that was good too. So yeah, I'm doing pretty good, man. It's good to see you guys. Like I said, I spent a lot. I consider myself pretty much Texan. I mean, I spent of my 56 years I've been on the planet, 20 of them were spent in Texas, longer than I've been anywhere else. And so I go back down there next month, which I'm pretty happy to be doing that. And so my mom and sister live in and around Houston, Spring, Texas. So
okay,
I love getting back to Texas and talking to Texas folks. So thanks for having me on, guys.
Texas misses you. So
yeah, thank you so much.
I get back as much as I can, man. I know I'll be in Austin in November, and I'll be in Austin again in I don't know May or June or something like that. I can't remember.
That's great. Well, one of the first questions I want to ask you, I've been listening a lot to your podcast channel and your interviews, and I love the information that you put out and the way you present it and the way you kind of do it in a lighthearted manner and kind of poke back and all that different things. I think all of that is it's very solid, great information. And then two, the way that humor engages people. I just think it's done tastefully and well, and I appreciate it. But I wanted to get your origin story. So I know that once upon a time you were an orthopedic surgeon, and then you're almost like 8 years into this carnivore thing. But how did you come about this carnivore diet? What's your origin story?
Yeah, I mean, basically, there was no such thing as a carnivore diet. I was the guy that actually named it carnivore diet. There's people doing this quote unquote zero carb diet, which was an all meat diet back then. But I just didn't like the name. I was asked to write a book about it, because I was doing this, and I ended up getting on Rogan's podcast, and the publisher contacted me and said, "Hey, you need to write about a book about it." I said, "What am I going to call it?" I said, "Well, I'm going to call it the carnivore diet," and that's kind of where that came from. But I mean, prior to that, I mean, as you're right, I was an orthopedic surgeon. I've been an athlete my whole life. I've trained hard, worked out hard, but I was, kind of early 40s, probably 42, 43. And, I was kind of, just probably the wrong nutrition was catching up to me, even though I kind of held it off, or seemingly held it off for 40 some years through just intense training. I was actually, training world-class, world championships in different sports. And I realized that, hey, I'm just not feeling that good. I'm in my 40s, and I'm like, and I didn't want to accept that. I was like, I'm not that old. I mean, I'm a doctor. I should know how to fix this stuff, right? So I started playing with nutrition, because the only thing I really wasn't focusing on, I mean, I wasn't eating bad. I mean, I was eating a lot of protein, a lot of meat, a lot of food in general, because I was, big guy. I was 280 pounds at the time. It's composed like now I'm about 255. I'm a little lighter, but I mean, and training hard and strong and all that stuff. But I was just, the weight was like not where I wanted to be. I wasn't as lean as I wanted to be. I was not sleeping well. I probably had metabolic syndrome, all those things. And so I started playing with diet, and I went on this, calorie restricted, relatively low fat, high fiber, mostly vegetable, lean protein, lots of exercise, dropped 50 pounds in 3 months. But I was miserable. I was literally like, I cannot live this way. This is not something I could sustain long term. I would just be, the nurses in the hospital like, man, we like the fat Dr. Baker so much. I mean, it's just that kind of that stuff. I was like, I'm hungry. And so I was like, I can't do that anymore. So I said, this is when paleo was kind of in vogue. I said, let me play that paleo. So I started, doing all the paleo recipes and cooking. And I felt it was, I felt a little better. And, and then I just kind of got into nutrition, and, I was personally going through this kind of geared toward low carb. I eventually went on a ketogenic diet for a while. And at the same time, our hospital and the community of orthopedic surgeons got together and said, hey, we got too many fat people we're operating on. They're getting sick. They're having complications. You do knee replacement, somebody's too fat and they get blood clots, they get wound infections. They don't rehab as well. Let's not operate on these folks until they get under a certain BMI. So that was the goal. And we all, as a community, said we're all going to stick together so they couldn't just go to the next doctor. It was like, we need to, as a group, cohesively push this problem. The problem was it didn't work. No one would lose weight. I mean, they had a bariatric surgeon. He just didn't have time to operate on all the people that needed knee replacements and hip replacements that were overweight. And so, I was trying to do my part, and I was like, I found this sort of low carb diet really worked for me. And I was talking to some patients, and I said, hey, let's try this. And, some would, some wouldn't, probably most wouldn't, but some would, I didn't think try 20% would. And what would happen is the ones that did, I would see every back in about 2 weeks, say, hey, how's it going with the diet? Tell me what's going on. And 2 weeks, most people didn't lose any weight. They maybe lost a couple pounds at most. But what was remarkable to me, and this kind of is germane to our topic today, I guess, is that they would come back and say, hey, doc, my knee doesn't really hurt anymore. And I'm like, well, you're on the schedule for a knee replacement. That's odd, because if you don't have any knee pain, then there's really no point in doing this surgery. I mean, the point of the surgery is almost completely to relieve pain. So I ended up canceling a lot of surgeries, and then kind of a bunch of other stuff. But eventually, I shifted into carnivore. I was doing that with a ketogenic diet with patients. I found this crazy group of people, zero carb health or zeroing in on health. They were a Facebook group. It sounds kind of crazy. You watch a doctor looking at a Facebook group. It sounds so stupid. But I mean, I was like, it was kind of like watching you just got morbid fascination. What's going on with these crazy people? Are these crazy people just eating meat, right? But I mean, I kind of got interested. And then, after like 6 months of listening to these sort of really almost unbelievable stories, I was already kind of questioning some of the mainstream nutritional narrative at that point. So it wasn't that much of a reach for me. And I was like, well, I'll just do it. I'll eat steak and eggs for breakfast one day and see how it goes, and I did. And I was like, it felt pretty good. I like it. I enjoy it. I like the hell out of steak. I like eggs. And, then I went from, one meal to a full day, and then a couple days, and then a week and 2 weeks. And finally 2016, I said, let me just do a 30-day deal. And at the end of those 30 days, I was like, man, I feel really, really good. I can't remember the last time I felt this good. I felt, it was just before I turned 50. And I was like, man, I feel like I'm 30 again. This is pretty good stuff. But it was 30 days. So I said, well, that was cool. I'm going to go back to my regular diet, which was at that time a whole food kind of mixed omnivorous low carb diet.
Yeah.
And I immediately didn't feel as good. I was like, oh man, I'm starting to get like a little bit of back pain. My guts aren't feeling good. And I was like, man, I'm going to go back to the meat. And I did. And then I just kind of kept going and going and going. And the rest is history with that stuff. But I mean, that's how I got introduced into this. And I continue to this day to, still have a healthy level of skepticism, but at the same time, I'm just observing, watching people get better. And I know there's, I'm convinced that there's something there. There's something therapeutic about it. And that this should be pursued. It should be a legitimate option for many, many people. Because when I look across the landscape, and I just see so many people that are just jacked up. I mean, they're just all jacked up. They're miserable. And it's just like, man, you just get these people for 3-6 months to just eat a bunch of steaks and cut out all the BS.
Yeah.
It would probably change a significant percent of their lives for the better, for the rest of their lives in many cases. And like, not everybody, and I will I will say this completely and truthfully. I don't think everybody needs to be on a carnivore diet. I think it's a therapeutic tool. I like it because 1, it's simple. 2, I like the food. 3, I feel good on it. So I don't really, I'm not concerned about, do I need to add fruit or honey or rice or, this or that in my diet. I'm not worried about that because I feel great. I perform great. I'm very happy with where I am from a health standpoint as a, almost 60-year-old dude now. So, I mean, it's kind of like,
awesome.
It's like, that's where I'm at. So that's kind of the origin, I guess.
Yeah. And that's the reason. So you were an orthopedic surgeon. And so since your clients were having such success switching to meat-based and alleviating pain, is that why you decided to kind of segue out of that? And
no, I mean, I was practicing, I was in my last year or two of practice. I was like really impressed with the impact that diet and lifestyle had on orthopedic conditions, so much to the point that, and I was the busiest surgeon in the hospital. I mean, literally, I was the guy that did more surgeries than anybody else. I was the head of the department, head of the orthopedic group. I was on billboards in town. I was in magazines, the hospital. I went to the administration because you're under the hospital, I was employed. So you're in the hospital. And I said, hey, you know what, guys, I'm seeing a lot of good results with diet on these orthopedic conditions. I'd like to take half a day a week, afternoons, and just do like lifestyle consultations, right? And they were like, nah, we don't really think you should be
Wow.
doing that. So they basically, you know, and I was like, what? Why would you not want people to get healthy so they can avoid surgery? Well, I was fairly naive at the time. I thought, you know, this is altruistic. You know, the job of a hospital and a doctor is to get people healthy, and what it turns out is it's the grind, man. It's just to keep the wheels turning. You got to have surgeries to make the OR turn over, to make the OR profitable, and make the whole system profitable. And orthopedics is one of the most profit generating practice, you know, specialties in there. So they're like, no, we hired you as an orthopedic surgeon. We don't want you to be a lifestyle guy. So that kind of ate at me for a while. And then finally I told my nurse, who was, I was handing out flyers every day. Here you go. Here's a flyer. Here's a flyer. Go watch this video. Go do this. Read this book.
Wow.
And finally, I just said, you know what? I said to my nurse, Karen, wonderful woman. I said, Karen, hey, just block off some time for me. I'm going to do this stuff anyway. And then, so I did it anyway, despite the administration telling me not to. And we got a big fight.
That's great.
Turned into a legal thing. And then I ended up just, you know, leaving. They suspended my privileges because I got, you know, pissed off about all that. And so I got my license suspended. You know, while I voluntarily did that, I had to go independent evaluation to look at my work, and the independent evaluator said, there's nothing wrong with what you do. Go back to practice. But by that time, I was already so pissed off. And it took like this legal process took like 2 years. I was like, I hadn't been in the OR in 2 years. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do this lifestyle stuff. And so that's what I've been doing. And, you know, we formed this company, Revero, which is, you know, a digital health company, all 50 states. You know, we're using lifestyle nutrition to do what I think needs to be done. What doctors should be doing is mitigating disease. And so that's where I'm at today. And I'm much happier. I mean, I liked operating. It was cool. It was kind of cool stuff. You get to do things a lot of people don't get to do, but at the same time, the level of reward I get, you know, the personal reward, that feel good about myself is so much better now because I literally, almost without exception, every day I get to talk to people whose lives have been not only improved a little bit, but totally transformed by just a dietary switch, which is so easy. You know, you think about how much money we spend and invest in healthcare. We're talking $4 trillion a year in the U.S. healthcare system, and what are we getting for it? We're getting a shorter life expectancy, an absolute blossoming of chronic disease, and just more pills and drugs. And, you know, is that what we want? I don't want it. I don't think so. I don't want it for my kids or anything. So I'm going to keep, you know, fighting the good fight here.
Yeah. And so I was kind of, for a selfish reason, wanted to have you on the podcast, because the reason that I went carnivore is I had a shoulder issue. I had 4 orthopedic surgeons tell me you need a shoulder replacement. And I had an enormous amount of degradation here in my shoulder head. And I had years of issues on and off, and I always trained very hard and heavy, and I could usually train through it and stretch through it. And then I got to a point where the pain wouldn't subside. And what had happened, I had so much scar tissue build up, it was putting pressure on the nerve in my armpit, and it was radiating to my neck and back. And so they went in there to scope it, and they said, oh, well, you know, 30% of your labrum's missing, and, you know, your shoulder, you have the shoulder of an 80-year-old, and it just looks terrible. So they cleaned it out. And so a large portion of the pain went away. And then I went to a stem cell specialist in Dallas. He took some of my stem cells, spun them, shot them back in my arm, and the pain went away. Now, I'm not a doctor or anything, but I knew, I'm like, well, eventually that scar tissue is going to come back. And it's very likely that eventually this pain's going to come back. And so we decided to make this shift to carnivore. And prior to carnivore, I could not do one push-up.
Let alone like really do anything with your left arm.
Because I had a bicep tendinosis, so I know it takes about 12 months to recover from that. And I'm still kind of have some numbness and whatnot, and have certain range of motions that I don't have. But I wanted to pick your brain as far as what you've seen with joints. And because I've heard, I think Dr. Shafee mentioned that they have seen labrum regrowth, that it takes a very long time.
Well, and finish your statement too about, you weren't.
Oh yeah. So I before Carnivore, I wasn't able to do any type of exercise or push up or anything like that.
Yeah.
And then 2 weeks into Carnivore, I was kind of joking around with the boys, and I'm like, man, I feel so good. Like I could probably do a push up, and I did like 20 strict push ups, and now I'm doing sets of 40. But I wanted to get your experience and feedback of what you've seen with joints and maybe not just pain. Have you seen anything where they've seen the joint actually improve?
Well, I mean, I don't know where Chafee got information that labrums were growing. I've not seen that, or at least any significant degree that I'm aware of. I mean, like I said, that was my skill. I haven't specifically looked at that particular question recently. Maybe there's something recent that came out, but and I can't say I've seen significant cartilage regrowth in a joint. I can't say I've seen significant improvements in X-ray conditions in a joint. It's not to say that it can't happen or hasn't happened, but I've not seen it, and I'm a little skeptical that it would happen. But what I will say is that people that have limitations due to arthritis or tendonitis or various orthopedic conditions often improve via dietary shifts, and I think it has to do a lot with a couple things. I think one, there's a dramatic decrease in generalized inflammatory problems, and so a lot of that pain is associated with chronic inflammation, or they just run hand in hand. And so when the inflammation subsides, the pain also seems to subside. I think that's occurring. I think, we do have some capacity to heal. Obviously, you got your skin, your skin grows back, you cut a muscle, there can be some regrowth on that. So our tissues do have some capacity to grow back. Whether they can grow back and form like a new baby, I doubt it. But I mean, I do think there is some capacity for healing. If there wasn't, we'd never do surgery on people, because stuff has to heal to some capacity. It may not be the exact same tissue, but there's fibrous tissue that can get in there and kind of do the job and structurally kind of act as a bridge. But I think that range of motion can improve, pain reduction can improve, or can reduce, strength can improve. And I think you're doing the right things. I mean, like I said, sound like you're basically incapacitated. Now you're knocking out 40 push-ups. So, I mean, you're miles ahead of where you would be. And you're probably to the point where if it was me and I came in there, and again, I don't know, I haven't examined you, but I'd be like, I'm less inclined to give you a shoulder replacement in that situation, because you're unlikely to get that much better function. So you may have taken yourself out of candidacy for a shoulder replacement. Now, are you going to be throwing 90-mile-an-hour fastballs for the Astros? Probably not. But I mean, at the same time, what do you need to do and I'm not sure how old you are, but I mean, it's just like, if you can function relatively pain-free and have, very good level of function, and I think you can continue to gain on that, because how long you think you sat there and atrophied and lost strength and range of motion due to multiple surgeries, maybe a year, maybe a decade, who knows? And so it may be the next 2 or 3 years. You may just continue to get stronger and stronger to the point where, hey, this is not a significant issue for you, and it's and it sounds like, honestly, because of the nerve pain and the back and neck thing, you probably have some fairly kind of a diffuse arthritic change, degenerative changes in a number of, not just your shoulder, maybe in your spine a little bit. And I think Carnivore, what are you going to do? You're going to replace every disc in your spine and, replace your shoulder. I mean, it becomes impractical at some point.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like, can I address all these issues systemically, which I think nutrition and perhaps some other things do. Nutrition, exercise, sleep, some of these other things that have an impact on this. So that's where I would kind of leave it at that.
Okay. Yeah. Cause the kinetic, the shoulder is it just limits all of my other ability to do all the other type of physical training that I used to do. Cause I got real into kettlebells and all that stuff. And it just seems like everything requires your shoulder. And
it's funny. Like you injure your small toe and you realize, holy cow, I didn't know how much I use my small toe. It's just like, you had something that's painful, you realize how much you use it, your back particularly. So, I mean, you're early. What you said, you guys are what, 3-4 months into Carnivore or something like that.
Yep.
So, I mean, in my experience, and I think there's reasons for this, many people continue to see improvement for up to several years, 3, 4, 5 years, perhaps. So it may be that you're just, at the beginning of this, and you may still have significant capacity to improve overall health and to include shoulder health.
Great. Yeah. And we, so all 8 of us are currently carnivore, and we've all had an enormous amount of success. I'm 47. I was never really overweight, but after the surgery and not being able to exercise, basically, I probably gained about 10 pounds. I've lost all that. And just all of the other benefits that go along with it, with the brain fog going away, and then sleeping great, that's helping me recover as well, and helping my shoulder feel better. Because there for about 7 years, I barely slept at all, just dealing with all the back and the neck and the shoulder and having to try to lay a certain way. So
yeah, I feel I don't know. I'd injured my neck in jiu-jitsu about 2 months ago, and I had similar. I had very pain down my hand, and it was C7. I have a little disc herniation, and thankfully that is resolving. I for the first time, last week was about the first time in 2 months I actually gotten any kind of decent sleep, because it was the same thing. You had to lay with your neck kind of turned a certain way. Out, and you're like, and you can't sleep that way for very long. And it was just like, because as soon as you fall asleep and you go back the other way, you wake up with your arm on fire, and it's like, but it's getting better, and I think some of it's just time, and there's a pretty significant percent of that stuff that just gets better on its own. I've been obviously doing what I can with regard to therapy and some dietary shifts that I made, but I feel your pain in a way.
You added like a little bit more, you're doing a higher fat ratio.
Yeah. I mean, there's some decent literature and scientific literature that supports, ketosis or ketones as having sort of a neuroinflammatory, protective effect. It kind of damps down neuroinflammation, which is what I have. I mean, I've got a nerve root that's being irritated by a little, squished out disc, which is the nucleus pulposus is very irritating. It's like the jelly part in your disc. And so that's really kind of irritating. It produces a pretty significant immune inflammatory reaction. So it's all in that area. And so if you can kind of tamp that down a little bit, you can get a lot of pain relief. And so now, I'm sitting here with 1 out of 10 pain in my shoulder, and that's, I can sit there and I still got numbness in my fingers, but generally, I mean, I work out every day. I still train hard. I mean, there's a few things I can't do yet, which I like sprinting and jumping. I'm looking forward to getting back to that stuff, probably another month or 2, I would imagine. But yeah, I mean, I think the diet does seem to help for sure.
Now, I had another really important question for you. Who is Frangie?
God, it's kind of funny. So, I mean, there you go. There you go.
Is she a relative?
Yeah.
Does she have a pronoun?
Yeah, she's my sister. Yeah, she's got a sort of boyfriend, Eduardo. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, a lot of people laughed about that. I was hesitant to do that, and it's kind of funny. It's like people are like, God, it's like some Freemason humiliation ritual. I'm like, no, that's just goofing around, right? So, and I actually tried all those foods. I mean, it's on camera. I was like eating the sole of a friggin' shoe and some god awful concoction we made. It was like that little, I don't know which one video that is, but we made this smoothie, like vegan detox smoothie.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah,
literally. I mean, we took the lid off that thing, and the guy. My buddy Terry was filming. He was like, it literally smelled like death, and I was like, I'm gonna pretend. So we had fun with that.
Well, I just love the humor, and you speak satirically to the actual issue.
Yeah,
and really the other, unfortunately, in this postmodern world we live in, the other side of the issue has literally become like a caricature, really. And, our background is we were very much whole foods and organic, and we were gluten-free, dairy-free for a long portion of time. Yeah. We were predominantly plant-based. And I had the exact same consensus that you had. And I just chalked it all up to old age, because I'm 47, and I'm like, man, this getting old just sucks, and this is terrible. And like, am I going to feel, I used to feel good, and like, I just feel terrible now. I don't sleep well.
If we assume the natural lifespan of human beings is around 80 years, which I think that's a reasonable thing. I mean, there's some people think they can get out to 120 or whatever, but I mean, you know, you go back historically, you can look at like, I think it was Plato lived to 88 or something like that. So he's back in ancient Greece, right? So we know humans have lived into the 80s for a long time. Why would it, you know, if the natural lifespan is 80 or 90 or 120, whatever it is, why would it make sense that you spend the last 50, 60, 70 years in significant pain? It just doesn't, there's no other animal species that does that. I mean, it's like, what is the point of living all this time in debilitating, you know, to cripple, poor functioning? I don't think that's normal aging. I mean, it's common. We all,
right.
It's not hard to look around and see guys in their 50s with back pain and big bellies and bad knees and, you know, tired and snoring. And I mean, that's normal, or it's common. It's not normal. It's very common. And I think we should be able to still be vigorous and fit and active and still be able to do most things. And I look at it, you know, like people talk about longevity, and I always, these longevity experts, I always kind of laugh at, like, they have no idea. They're just guessing. I mean, they're, you know, maybe some of the stuff there's no way. I mean, it's a good business to be in, because where's your money back guarantee? I mean, you're
right.
You know, well, you're going to live to 100. Well, what if I don't live to 100? Well, it's too bad. So I look at, you know, what can you function at? You know, like I use this. I've made this analogy for many, many times. Line everybody up on the starting line, 100 yards out. Everybody can do it under 15 seconds. Is going to live another 50 years, and everybody that can't is going to live less. That's probably realistic, you know, because you think about, why can't you run 100 meters in 15 seconds? Well, you got arthritis, you're too fat, you're too weak, you're too slow, your cardiorespiratory aren't fit, you know, whatever, you know, you don't have the mental headspace to do it. And then everybody that can, even if they're 60, they're going to probably be outliving the guy who's maybe 30 in many cases, you know. So anyway, we kind of measure the wrong things, in my view.
Well, it's very, unfortunately, it's very lucrative for people to be sick for extended periods of time.
Well, yeah, of course it is. Yeah. I mean, that's where we're making all the money, man. It's just like, you know, I mean, it's very sad to see that, you know. And I think there's a certain amount of evil in the world. I mean, there's sort of this thing where it's for the greater good. I get that. You know, obviously, if you do something in a significant way, some people are going to benefit and some people are not. And some people are going to be harmed by that. But when the numbers overwhelmingly, people are getting sick and you're making a profit, and the number of people benefiting are your shareholders, and your wife's got her second super yacht. I mean, it's kind of like that blurs the line. And I mean, you've crossed the line into evil, I think. So I think we've got some of that in the world, unfortunately.
And there's a direct correlation to these mega transnational corporations and ultra processed foods, and ill health and the medical industrial complex. You know, everybody's benefiting except for the individual. And, you know, so it does, in a larger, from the larger picture, it does appear conspiratorial, even if just coincidentally, which, you know, speaks to that whole evil.
Well, I mean, I think it's human nature. People are greedy by nature. I mean, you know, they're going to, you know, everybody does. I mean, they're going to, hey, if I can get a little advantage, and, you know, you start milking the system and it becomes easy. I mean, it's easy. Yeah, let's make more money. You know, after a certain point, you become insulated. You almost, you know, you kind of get this, no one can touch me type of thing. And yeah, so, I mean, I think it's just pure greed.
So you mentioned Revero. What exactly is Revero?
Yeah, Revero is our company. You know, like I said, I've been complaining and moaning about how crappy the healthcare system is for years. And it's like, well, what are you going to do about it? And so this is my attempt, or our attempt. And I will say, I mean, we've got a massive amount of support behind this, because in order to get started, we had to raise a bunch of money. We raised $5 million. $3 million of it came from crowdfunding, you know, and we were like, wow. When I announced this, like a little over a year ago, we announced, hey, we're raising money to start. This is what we're planning on doing. We're starting a, you know, digital health platform. We're going to focus on root cause. We're going to work on nutrition, get people off medicines, blah, 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 all the things we should be doing. I thought we would, I was hoping we could raise $3 million in the 3 months that the campaign was available. We raised that in 5 days, man. 5 days, we had $1 million. Wow. So I was like, holy cow. So there's a lot of support for this.
Wow.
Then of course, we got a little bit of venture capital money came in there, because they're like, oh, they have their, oh my God, people believe in this stuff. So we've been building that out. We hired the engineering team. We hired we've got physicians licensed in all 50 states, ready to go. We are probably a few weeks out from launching. We're just finishing up some last minute tech. We had to form like 6 different companies, and there's to operate in all 50 states. There's a lot of, you know, particularly a medical company. There's so much, you know, regulatory stuff you got to get in, get your ducks in a row on. And so we are just about on the verge of launching that. We've got thousands of people on the waiting list already, which is really good. So we've got a really, I think, a decent demand for this. And I think this is going to kind of, I honestly believe that our company and many others probably will come up in conjunction, will change the landscape of healthcare. I think people are sick of it. They're sick of just, not getting better. Here's another pill. Well, that pill didn't work. Well, here's another one. Well, that's very expensive, and then your premiums go up. Because, it's a lot of people, like, I look at all these new drugs. Every time I see a TV commercial and some new friggin' biologic drug for Stelara or something, there's all these, you see them, there's all these new drugs in the market. And I always look up, what do these things cost? Well, this infusion only costs $4,000 a month. I mean, who has 50 grand a year to pay for this stuff? Well, it's like, it's my copay is only $100 or something like that. Well, where do you think the rest of that money goes? Where do you think the rest of that cost goes to? It goes to everybody else's premiums. So we're all paying, friggin' 800, 900,000, $1,500 a month premiums for healthcare to pay for these ridiculously expensive drugs, which if you just did lifestyle, probably most of the people wouldn't need to be on them anyway. It would be, if I had $4,000 a month to spend on a drug, what kind of steaks could I buy for that? I mean, I'm like, I could be friggin' eating friggin' E5 Wagyu from Japan every day for that. That's kind of crazy. So, I think literally, totally. I think literally if our taxpayers are going to support this, and there's talk about like this new drug Ozempic, hey, we should have taxpayers fund because obesity is such a problem, we can't figure it out. You do better off just to take your tax money and feed these people better food, buy them friggin' steaks, instead of giving them that friggin' Captain Crunch and all the other crap that they're eating. It's just a craziness. Yeah.
And then is Colorado Craft Beef, is that your company? Or are you just associated with them? Or?
Oh, yeah, no, I'm just wearing a shirt, but yeah, Jeff Smith's a good guy. Colorado Craft, I'll give Jeff some props. Jeff's a really good guy. I met him 5 years ago. And Jeff's kind of big guy, big guy to me, but he's kind of fat. He was like 320 or something like that. And I kind of made fun. I said, hey, Jeff, man, why don't you stop eating the bullshit and just eat your own product? And he did. He went carnivore. He dropped like 85 pounds, started doing jiu-jitsu. I've always supported, I try to support ranchers. I think those are the guys, I think about it, it's like, you get one vote in an election, but you vote every single day with your pocketbook. You vote every time you go to the store, every time you buy this processed garbage, you just give those guys more money and more power effectively. So I don't want to do that. So I'm always trying to promote various ranchers. Just one of the good guys. They have great meat. They're up in Colorado. They just bought a processing facility. And I think they got investors like Jocko Willink and some others. And I invested a little bit of money in that. And so, I want to see these guys succeed, and I'll use, whatever I can to make it. I think all the ranchers succeed. Most people don't realize this, but since like 1970 or 80, 500,000 ranchers in the U.S. have gone out of business. 500,000 ranchers. You think about it, we're like freaking out over 3,000 farms closing in the Netherlands, and we're like 500,000 ranches have gone under in the last 40, 50 years in the U.S. because of, there's a whole bunch of reasons for that, but it's a problem, and they want to keep driving it down lower and lower, and they further centralize the food so they can control the food, and then all of a sudden we're all eating friggin' cricket powder and soy protein. And so that's a real concern.
Yeah,
that was another intrinsic benefit of us going carnivore, is we do raise our own beef, and we found, what happened for us is we found an awesome microprocessor in our area that wasn't like 12 months out. So we said, hey, we're having so much success here. We have a local mom and pop microprocessor. We could probably make our beef available for local pickup.
Yeah.
So we started doing that a couple months ago,
and it's been a great success.
We've been selling out every month, and so we're entering that whole rancher space. We only have a total of about 50 acres.
Yeah.
But we're venturing into that space and just trying to provide high quality beef.
Well, and it was cool because when we were like Whole Foods / more like heavy leaning towards vegetables and stuff like that, it was close to impossible to be anywhere close to self-sufficient. And then we got on the carnivore diet, and we're like 99% self-sufficient in the food category. you know?
Yeah, I bet, you know,
It's
with 80 in
incredible.
your house, your toilets probably took a break too, man. It was probably
Yeah.
8 people on a plane place. I
That's
probably had a waiting
true.
line with like a waiting room, like 3 deep, man. Yeah, I mean, after Sally and Bonnie got to go first, and then you're up. You know,
Exactly.
well, good on you guys.
So
So, how many head of cattle you guys got? 50 acres. You can't have too many on
We-
50, but I mean,
No, yeah, and that's 50 like all together. So
yeah.
we have a 25-acre ranch, and that's about a mile down the road from us. So we have about 15 cows over there now, but we picked up another lease though too, and that's about 40 acres over there. We haven't yet like totally settled on that yet. There's been a couple other properties that we've been checking out because we just want to expand our herd.
yeah, good for you guys.
And we right now we are raising longhorns, and they are just not the best
Fat
for
enough. Yeah.
beef.
They
You
don't
know,
have
they're
enough
real
fat
lean.
content.
So we're swapping them out, and we're going to be getting a low line Angus.
Yeah,
So-
red Angus.
or a red
Yeah.
Angus. Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, I
something
guess
real
red will do
fatty.
better. Red will do better in the Texas heat than the black ones will too. I'd
Yeah.
imagine.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's just
Yeah.
kind of like, the long arm. I was a hook 'em horns guy. I don't know. Hopefully, I know you guys are A&M guys, but maybe Bevo with the big. You know, I just don't imagine eating him. But yeah, I haven't heard a lot of people selling longhorn beef. But you know, anyway, it's I guess you guys learn. You guys figure it out because
Yep. Yeah, we're figuring it out.
there's definitely a science to all that stuff, the genetics and.
Definitely.
I've talked to so many ranchers over here. I've learned a hell of a lot more. I know more about ranching than most doctors need to, for sure. I got to tell you that.
Yeah.
But it's that's something in the back of my mind one day. When I get done trying to save the world from disease, get a ranch and figure out how to do that stuff. Or,
There you go.
Anyway,
That's
one day
great.
maybe. I'll ask you guys for some tips down the road.
So, Matt, did you have any questions for Dr. Baker? Anything that you want to ask him?
No, not really. I just absolutely love all of your content and definitely appreciate it, and yeah, it's inspiring. And me personally, I've had shoulder surgery done actually to my left shoulder too, but that wasn't due to anything, wasn't arthritis or anything. I've dislocated it.
Yeah.
And, but I will say this is my second shoulder surgery done on my left shoulder. Because I re-injured it again. So I would say I was on Carnivore for the second surgery, and it feels like it's healing way faster than the last time.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. I mean, I clearly, it's not even my belief that the literature supports higher protein for healing. It supports, you get in there, and I had patients on knee replacements. They went on a low carb kind of meat-based diet and less inflammation, less swelling, better range of motion. Just overall outcomes were better. I mean, you probably had, sounds like you probably had arthroscopic Bankart repairs, most likely, where they kind of probably, I'm assuming, they tighten up.
Yeah, I had my labrum rebuilt. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I did a whole bunch of those. Used to do those all the time. But good luck to you. But yeah, just keep it strong. Keep that shoulder strong, and hopefully you won't have any problems with instability anymore. So that would be good.
Yeah.
Well, so we talked about Revero.
Yep.
And we talked about joints. Well, I really appreciate you coming on, taking the time, investing the time, and we're looking forward to the rollout of Revero.
Yeah.
And I've converted some guys at work. One of my buddies at work, he just bought your book. And so we really appreciate the information that you put out there. We appreciate the time coming on the podcast. And, we just want to say thank you.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm talking to Texas folks. So good to have, good you guys are doing. Good luck to you guys. And anything I can do, let me know, man. Okay.
All right.
All right. Great, Dr. Baker. All right, y'all. So remember, stay fearless, my friends.